Part 1. Her phone was still on the nightstand. The first sign something was wrong wasn't that she didn't come home. It was that her phone was still on the nightstand. Claire never forgot her phone. I know everyone says that about people after they disappear, how out of character something was. But this wasn't a small habit. It was part of her. That phone was like an extension of her hand, her life, her constant connection to her world. So when I woke up that morning and saw her side of the bed empty, sheets barely disturbed, and her phone glowing softly beside my alarm clock, my chest tightened. Something was wrong. Really wrong. I called her name. Once, twice. Checked the bathroom. Nothing. Her toothbrush was dry. Towel still neatly folded. That's when I noticed the front door. Unlocked. Wide open. And no keys on the hook. I stood in the doorway for a full minute, barefoot on cold tile, staring out into the gray-blue morning. There were no signs of a break-in. No struggle. No sound. Just the open air and the kind of silence that makes your skin itch. I called her phone out of habit. It lit up, right there on the nightstand. Buzzed once. Voicemail. I should have called someone. The police. Her sister. Her best friend. Anyone. But instead, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at that screen, and whispered, "Where the hell are you?" Because here's the thing. Claire didn't vanish. She chose to disappear. I just didn't know it yet. Part 2. The bag that wasn't packed. I searched the house like it would give me answers. Like there'd be a note taped to the fridge or a suitcase missing from the closet. But everything was still there. Her bag. Her purse. Even her coat, the one she wore everywhere, still hanging by the door. Only one thing was missing. Her. I opened her closet. Nothing had been touched. The drawers still filled with socks, scarves, the scarf I bought her for our anniversary last year. She had cried when I gave it to her. Not because it was expensive, but because it was the exact shade of blue she said reminded her of her childhood bedroom. She hadn't even taken that. There was no sign she had packed or planned to go anywhere. Except for the keys. The keys were gone. By noon, I had called her sister. "Have you heard from Claire?" A pause. "No, why? She's not home. She didn't come back last night." Silence. "Wait, what do you mean she's not home?" "I mean the bed hasn't been slept in." The front door was wide open. "Her phone's here, but she's not." Her sister's voice dropped. "Did you two fight?" "No. I mean, no more than usual. You need to call the police. I think she left on purpose." Then all the more reason. But I didn't call them. Not yet. Because somewhere in my gut I knew. This wasn't something a patrol car would solve. That night, I lay awake with her phone in my hands. Scrolling. Searching. No recent texts that stood out. No strange messages. No clues in her calendar. Just a small, innocuous note from 2 days ago. Friday, 8 p.m. Lavender. That was it. Just one word. Lavender. A restaurant? A place? A person? I searched her browser history. Nothing. But then I remembered. There was a lavender farm just outside of town. She mentioned it once in passing, said she'd gone there as a kid. Said the smell reminded her of her mother. She never talked about her mother. Ever. I told myself I was grasping at straws. But when you wake up and the love of your life is gone, you start grabbing whatever you can find, even if it cuts you on the way down. The next morning I drove out there. It was an hour outside the city. Dirt roads. Rows of quiet purple under a gray sky. Closed for the season. But her car was there. Parked behind the maintenance shed. Alone. Cold to the touch. Keys still in the ignition. And on the dashboard, folded in half, was a note. Written in her handwriting. Just 4 words. "Don't look for me." Part 3. Things I didn't want to read. My hands were trembling when I picked up the note. Don't look for me. Not I'm okay. Not I'm safe. Not I'll be back. Just that. Command. Like she'd planned it. Like she'd rehearsed how it would feel to vanish completely. To cut me out not with anger or cruelty, but something far worse. Distance. I unlocked her car. Sat in the driver's seat. Still smelled like her. Faint perfume. Faint lavender. There was a receipt on the passenger seat. From a gas station 3 towns over. Timestamped 7:12 p.m. Friday. She drove out here on purpose. She left her phone, her purse, her coat. Everything. But she brought this note. Planted it. Made sure I would find it. I started the engine. Checked the glove box. Nothing. Then, almost reflexively, I popped the trunk. That's when I found the second note. Tucked into the inside lining of her old gym bag. This one was longer. Folded neatly. I read it right there in the cold. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't disappear without saying something. But I couldn't say it to your face. You'd talk me out of it, and part of me would want you to. But I need to go. Not forever. But for now. Because I've been lying to you, and I can't keep pretending. I haven't been the person you think I am for a long time. Maybe I never was. And I'm tired of carrying a version of myself that only exists when you're looking. Please don't hate me. But please don't follow me. There are things I need to do before I can come back. If I come back. If that word cracked something open inside me. I sat down hard in the gravel, the note clenched in my hand. The person I loved, the person I thought I knew, had been preparing to leave me in pieces. And somehow, the worst part wasn't that she left. It was that she hadn't told me who she really was before she did. I drove her car home, parked it in the driveway, didn't tell her sister, didn't call the police, didn't burn the note, put it in my drawer, top left corner. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. I just didn't know the next time I saw her, she'd be with him. Part 4, The Man in the Photograph. 2 weeks passed. No word. No sign. No Claire. The world didn't stop, it never does. But mine had narrowed to a single point, her absence. I went to work. Ate. I slept barely. But I didn't move on. Because every time I opened a drawer, walked into the living room, or touched her pillow, I found something of hers. And every time, it whispered the same thing. She chose to leave. Then, one morning, something changed. I got a letter. Not from her. From a law firm. The envelope was thick. My name typed neatly on the front. Inside was a single document. A signed transfer of property rights. Claire had taken her name off the house. Voluntarily. No request. No explanation. Just gone. And paper to prove it. I called the number on the form. A receptionist answered. Told me Claire had met with an attorney the week before she disappeared. Told me everything was above board. I asked if she'd left any other message. The woman paused. Then said, "There was a photo." "What kind of photo?" "She asked us to mail it to you. Separately. Said you'd understand." I waited 3 days. Then it arrived. It was folded once, in half. On plain photo paper. Ink slightly faded. When I opened it, my breath stopped. Claire. Sitting on a bench in a park. Sunlight through trees. Her hand resting gently on the leg of a man beside her. A man I'd never seen before. But the way he looked at her, God, he looked like he'd been waiting years to touch her again. And on the back, in her handwriting, "You always said I looked happiest in the fall. You were right. But it wasn't because of the leaves." Couldn't breathe. I stared at the photo for what felt like hours. Who was he? Why now? Was this the reason she left? Or just the truth that leaving made possible? I checked the photo for details. Plaque behind the bench. A line of buildings in the far distance. I scanned everything. And then I drove. To every park I could think of that had benches like that. Took me 4 tries. But on the 5th, I found them. Not together. Just him. Sitting on the same bench. Alone. Looking like he was waiting. Part 5. What he knew that I didn't. I don't know what I expected when I approached him. Maybe anger. Maybe guilt. Maybe some explosive confession that would explain everything. But he didn't even look surprised when I walked up. He just looked tired. "Do you know who I am?" I asked. He nodded. "You're the husband." I didn't sit. I didn't speak. I just stood there, fists in my jacket pockets, heart thudding so hard I could feel it in my neck. "She left me," I said quietly. "I know. You're the reason?" He looked up at me then, really looked. And for a second I thought he might lie. But he didn't. "I'm one of the reasons," he said. The bench creaked as he shifted his weight. "She came here 3 months ago. Just showed up. Said she needed to see something for herself. I didn't know she was married. And you. I didn't think I'd ever see her again." My stomach turned. "How do you know her?" I asked. He looked out over the path where dry leaves blew across the ground. "We were in love," he said. "A long time ago." I didn't move. He went on. "We were together for 5 years. College into our mid-20s. Thought we'd get married. Then life happened. Her dad got sick. She moved back to take care of him. I didn't follow." "Why not?" He smiled sadly. Because I was a coward. Silence settled between us like a fog. She told me she was happy, I said. That she had everything she needed. She probably was, he said. Until she saw me. You think that gives her an excuse? No, he said softly. But I don't think she was looking for one. I finally sat down. My hands were shaking. I gave her everything, I said. I thought we had the kind of marriage people envy. He looked at me, not with pity. With understanding. I think you did, he said. But sometimes people break in places they never show you. I asked the question I'd been dreading. Are you together now? He shook his head. No. She left me too. What? She stayed here a few nights. We talked. Walked. That's it. She said she needed to feel something she'd buried. And then, she said goodbye. Said she had one more place to go before she'd decide what to do. Where? He hesitated. Her mother's house, he said finally. Out in Elmridge. I swallowed hard. Claire never talked about her mother. She died when Claire was 17. The house was still in the family, but no one lived there. Or so I thought. I stood up. She said she'd decide what to do? Yes. And you haven't heard from her since? No, he said. But I don't think she was running to either of us. He looked at me then, full of something like mercy. I think she was running to herself. Part 6, The House with No Power. Elmridge was 3 hours north, old logging roads, endless pines, forgotten farmland. I drove with the windows down, cold air biting at my skin. I didn't put on music. I didn't speak. All I could think about was the look on that man's face when he said, she left me too. Claire wasn't trying to escape from us. She was trying to remember who she was before either of us existed. The house sat at the edge of a hollow road, half swallowed by trees. I recognized it from the one photo she kept in a frame but never displayed. It looked the same, gray shutters, peeling paint, a porch that leaned forward like it wanted to confess something. There was no car out front. No lights in the windows. But the front door was unlocked. The smell hit me first. Dust. Old fabric. Dry wood. Not rot, not abandonment. Just stillness. Like time had slowed inside these walls. I stepped inside, half expecting her to be in the kitchen, waiting. But the house was empty. Furnished, but untouched. Quiet in the way only a memory can be. I walked through each room slowly. Finger trailing over surfaces. Shoes echoing softly. And then, upstairs. In what must have once been her bedroom, I found it. A journal. Lying open on a windowsill. I didn't want to read it. But I did. Only one entry was written. I needed to hear my own voice again. I spent too many years performing who I was supposed to be: wife, lover, caretaker, daughter. I'm tired of being everyone's idea of someone. I don't know who I am yet. But I'm going to find out. If you found this, it means you loved me enough to look. And I'm sorry for how much that probably hurt. Please don't wait for me. But if I come back, let me be someone new. See. I sat down on the floor, back against the wall, journal still in my hands. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just felt hollow. Not because she was gone, I was starting to understand that part. But because the woman I loved had been screaming silently beside me for years. And I hadn't heard her. Downstairs, I found more signs. Cans of food in the cupboard. Blankets folded on the couch. Not recent, but not forgotten. She'd been here. Stayed here. And then left. Again. Outside, the wind picked up. Pine needles scattered across the porch like confetti from a farewell I never got to attend. I stood there a long time. Watching the trees. Listening to the quiet. Trying to forgive her. Trying to forgive myself. And then, just as I turned to leave, I saw her handwriting. Scratched into the bottom corner of the porch beam, almost invisible. For words. Still looking for her. Part 7, The Day I Stopped Searching. I drove home without knowing why. There was nothing waiting for me there, no promise of return, no hint she'd follow. But something in me had changed. For weeks I'd been chasing her ghost, mistaking it for love, for loyalty, for something noble. But now I understood. This wasn't a rescue. This was a release. Back at the house, everything looked the same. Her keys still missing. Her phone still untouched. The scarf still hanging by the door like a relic from a former life. I walked through it all like a stranger. Touching the edges of things we once built together. A life, a marriage, a routine. But it wasn't mine anymore. Not fully. And maybe it never had been. I opened her phone one last time. No new messages. No missed calls. Just a wallpaper of us smiling on the dock at Lake Hallie. Her arms around my waist. My forehead against hers. I studied our faces. How convincing we looked. How convincing she looked. That night, I wrote her a letter. Not to send. Just to say the things I knew I never would if she returned. Claire, I forgive you. Not because it didn't hurt. Not because it was fair. But because holding on to your absence is worse than accepting your truth. I hope you find her, the version of yourself you thought got buried beneath all of this. And if you do, I hope she remembers that she was loved. Even if she couldn't stay. Me. I folded it. Slipped it into the journal she left behind. Placed it in the box with her photos, the scarf, the note that started it all. And I closed it. In the weeks that followed, I learned to stop waiting. I went back to work. I called friends I hadn't seen in years. I sat on the porch in the mornings, coffee in hand, watching the light change, not waiting for headlights in the distance, not hoping for footsteps on the walk. Just being. Sometimes I wondered where she was. What name she was using. What version of herself she'd become. And if she ever thought about me. But I didn't let it consume me. Because healing isn't a moment. It's a quiet, constant act of choosing not to chase. Then one evening 6 months after the day she left, I got a letter. No return address. Inside a single sheet of paper. No apology. No explanation. Just, asterisk, you were right. It wasn't the leaves. It was you. Thank you for letting me go. Asterisk. And folded inside the letter was her wedding ring. Part 8, the version of her I let die. I stared at the ring in my palm for a long time. It still fit perfectly inside the crease of my hand like it belonged there. Like nothing had changed. But everything had. I didn't cry. I didn't call her. I didn't even consider writing back. Because I understood now, the version of Claire I loved wasn't Alaya. But it wasn't all of her either. She had given me the parts she could carry. The pieces that made sense in a life built around being seen a certain way. But the rest? She'd hidden that in the cracks. Behind polite smiles, soft kisses, and those far-off looks I used to mistake for tiredness. The version of her I loved, the one I memorized, was never meant to last. It was a version she crafted for me. And maybe that was the most painful truth of all. Not that she left, but that I only knew the version she needed me to see. I kept the letter. Not out of longing, but remembrance. I wrapped the ring in soft cloth and placed it in the back of the drawer, not forgotten, just done. Like a finished chapter. A year later, I met someone new. Not at a party. Not online. Just in the real world on a normal day that didn't feel like it would matter. She was different. And I was different too. Quieter. Slower. Wiser. More willing to listen for the silences, Because I'd learned that love isn't just about the loud moments. It's about the ones where the person beside you disappears into themselves. And you don't try to pull them back. You just wait. And when they return, you welcome whoever they are that day. I never saw Claire again. Never tried to. But sometimes on cold fall mornings when the trees outside start to change and the air smells faintly of smoke and distant soil, I think of her, not as the woman who left, but as the woman who finally chose herself. And in a quiet way. Maybe that's the most honest kind of love story we'll ever get.